Welcome back to the All About You podcast. And today my guest is Lais Stefan, and she is a space clearing expert and intuitive healer. So what does this mean? Well, she's actually somebody who helps people uncover and shift the unseen energies affecting their homes and lives, and is a modern day Ghostbuster. So, Lais, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor to be on your podcast, and I love the introduction with the modern day Ghostbuster.
Well, I'm really interested in this because I've done a two-part series about decluttering, which was
Right.
absolutely fantastic. So we covered decluttering items, and then we covered the tricky part, which is, I always say, the sentimental items, the gifts, the photographs. Now, that is a big topic in itself, but you are talking about negative energy in our
Yes,
homes.
exactly. So
Okay.
it's if you like, the emotional clutter that stays behind because we cannot see it, but it's there, just like physical clutter. Every single emotion we feel every single day is energy and it floats around or gets imprinted into the furniture, the objects we use, the rooms itself, the house. And so I deal with the energetic clutter and remove that.
I've decluttered, I've made things simple because I do not want to do heavy duty cleaning when it's 36, 40 degrees.
Love
So
it. Yes.
I do this every year and I sort of change out the cushions and move a few bits of objet d'art around. I feel I'm preparing my house for the next sort of 3 months, the next season. I
Yes.
feel I've done that bit and I feel quite happy about this. But let's talk about what is negative energy in your home?
Hmm.
What is that? What does
There's
that look like and feel like?
Love the question, and there's many layers to that indeed, because negative energy is like a big term or an umbrella term that covers many different aspects of negative energy. So one can be the energy of, let's call it illnesses, different illnesses that were lived through when people lived in the home. It can be chronic illness, it can be depression as well. For example, I had a client with breast cancer who went through the whole chemotherapy, and so she was healing at home, and she went through the whole cycle of the shock of realizing she had the cancer, through the chemo and all the illnesses that accompanied the side effects of chemotherapy, the fears of not surviving, and then of course she survived, which is amazing. But there was all this energy of navigating this illness. And so this is one layer that I would remove when I work with people in their homes, to just restore the energy, bring it back to a healthy, vibrant life force energy that people can tap into to just feel more vibrant again. So illness is a big one. And so is divorce or separation energy. When we go through that, we also have prolonged periods where we are in disharmony in our partnership, lots of fighting, lots of questioning, frustrations, miscommunication, feeling lonely. So all of these would be imprinted in the home. And there is a way where I always say history repeats itself or can repeat itself. I grew up in a divorce home, and as soon as we moved out, post breakup of my parents, a new couple moved in, and not even a year later, they also divorced. And I've been seeing this so many times with other couples moving into somewhere where somebody had divorced or broken up before. And they started fighting more, and there was disharmony in the relationship when there wasn't that much before. So, this is the energy again that I would go into a space, clear that so that a family or a new couple that moves in doesn't have to deal with all of these imprints left behind. So, yes, breakup, divorce energy is a big layer. Then, as you mentioned, Ghostbuster, it's a small part of my work, but sometimes spirits, ancestors, if somebody lived somewhere and they died in the home, their spirit might still linger around. They might like their home. Maybe they built it themselves. They are proud of their home. They felt good in their home. They don't want to leave yet for whatever reason. And then I assist them to step into the light so that the current owners have a different energy, that they don't feel this energy of death, or, some spirits also can make themselves known through noises. That also happens. And sometimes people feel that strange energy in the house and that they're not alone. And so I removed that.
I mean, just going back a bit there, Lais, our home is our sanctuary.
Mm.
We can put on, a happy smiley face when we step outside the door. When we get home, we can drop that and we can rant. We've had a bad day at work, we've got
Mm.
financial problems, etc. It all spills out in our home environment, whether that's work issues, personal, with your family, relationship issues. And I guess if you
Yes.
think about it, if you're spilling all this, I don't want to use the word aggression, it could be aggression, but all this negative energy about what's gone on in your day, whether it was just a bad day or whether it's a long term issue, all that energy, I'm guessing, just sort of stays in the air. I mean,
Yes,
if
it's
we imagine every time we're sort of spilling about all the terrible things that happened at work this day, if we imagine that colour or those words and that negativity coming out of our mouth as a colour, that's going to be
mhm.
sprayed over the walls, over the sofa. I mean, I know that's
Yes.
incredibly visual, but all that negative is literally coming out of your body and it's going to stick to the walls and the furniture.
Yes, and I don't advocate for people to not talk about their days or to pay attention how positive they come across, because we are human beings. We go through stress at work and we need to talk about it because it's healthy. But just like a household where every week you clean, or even more often, some people where you hoover every week, where you take care of the dust and you wash your laundry, we have to think about our emotions that way too, and the space where the emotions still linger in the home. So I just love to spread awareness that just like physical cleaning and wiping and everything, the emotional cleansing is also important.
So, how did you become aware that you had this gift?
So it was by accident. It was nothing I ever imagined myself doing. I was in corporate. I studied business. I was in a corporate environment in Switzerland for many years. Then I started burning out because it didn't fulfill me at all. It was just not my thing to go to an office every day and to have the office politics to deal with. And I was very depressed, and my relationship wasn't working. We broke up. I was just feeling very lost. That was 2010. I went to Thailand just to take care of myself, to study meditation, yoga, study energy healing. So I rented a room in a place in Bangkok, and I moved in, and already I felt weird energy in the room. And I couldn't describe what, but I felt observed, if that makes sense. I felt like something was observing me. And at first I thought, is there a hidden camera somewhere? So I looked for it, but it was not there. And it was a small room. I would have found it. But this creepy feeling persisted throughout the week. Every night I would feel it, especially. And then at one night, I could hear my name being called in a male voice in my head. It was really loud. I woke up and I was completely shocked. And then next thing I see is the books coming off the shelf one by one. So not all of them at once, but really one by one being thrown out of the shelf. And I put on the light, and I was so fearful I couldn't even get out of bed. I was in freeze mode. And I sat in bed the rest of the night with the lights on, and I knew I had to talk to my energy healing school, because the teacher there, he understood about energies in homes and this kind of poltergeist energy that I had never been exposed to before. I never even thought about these things. And so I went to the school, and he said, okay, I would have to pass by with the team and assess what's happening. And he did. He came by, and they assessed a man had ended his life in that room and was still very much in pain. And they helped him step into the light through the process that this man was teaching, him and his team. And the receptionist then also later confirmed that this is what happened in that room. Somebody had ended their lives years before that I moved into this room. But for whatever reason, I had an awakening that night. I had to feel that spirit. And that was a sort of awakening for me because after I understood it was just a man who was deeply unhappy and ended his own life, I just felt so much compassion for anyone who ended their lives and was maybe still roaming around or in pain. And that extended to the entire spirit world. And for whatever reason, they were still here. I lost my fear completely. And my heart chakra, my heart just expanded. And I was just fascinated about the invisible that we never see or barely speak about. In addition to the yoga that I was doing, the meditations, I decided to study this course called Space Clearing. And it was an intensive course because you need to learn how to speak to spirits, how to feel energies in homes, how to do the assessment and understand what is happening in the home so you can really take care of the situation. Since 2012 now, I am doing this.
I mean, that's an incredible story. And I imagine by now a lot of listeners are rolling their eyes,
Yes,
shaking their heads, and going, no, 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 no. That there is no such thing as the afterlife, ghosts, spirits. I'm not one of those. I believe that when we die, that is not the final story. So I'm
right.
personally very open to this. But I do understand a lot of people would be eye
Yes.
rolling by now.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Because, myself was not involved with any type of afterlife situation or spirit world. It was a shock when it happened. And I imagine only people who get exposed to this, be it voluntarily because they want to or not at all like me, that's when you start maybe paying more attention to these things. But the majority of people, they're just living regular lives. And why should they bother? I mean, it's not part of their daily life.
Lais, let's imagine somebody has bought a very old house. Maybe this house
Hmm.
is 100 years old. They move into this dream old house. They put their things in there and they're sort of trying to make it all homely, but then something just doesn't feel right. And,
Hmm.
from things that I've sort of discovered over the years, there can be certain areas that will give off an energy or a feeling of
Mm.
coldness, or you just feel the hair on the back of your neck
Hmm.
will come up. Let's talk about if somebody has that experience and go, okay, well, we've cleaned, we've decorated, we've done as much as we can. We need somebody else to come in and just
Mm.
look and see what's going on here. Somebody asks you to come to their home because there is something that they can't work out. What's going to happen? What would be
Mm.
your plan?
Yes, so indeed, usually over my website, they would just book a free assessment. And there's a little questionnaire so they can input exactly what you said. Like, there's this space in my house that feels creepier than others. I get goosebumps when I walk in, or since moving in, we had so many accidents and we don't understand why. Or the kids are acting up in this house and when before they never did. Something just feels different to before. And then they will input the questionnaire, all these things. And I work mostly remotely, so I can zone in to the home's energy and I will get a download of information and visuals in terms of what is happening. And this will be reported back on Zoom or through email, whatever their preference is. After the assessment, they can choose to either have a space clearing or, to find their own methods and ways to improve the energy.
If they opt for space clearing, what's going to happen? Do they have
Mm.
to empty that room of everything? Can you go in alone? How does that
Mm.
work?
No, they can still be in the home. They can stay present in the home. They can go about their life as usual. They don't need to do anything special, let's say. It's more me. I have to go into a meditative state, just really slow down my thoughts so I'm receptive to the downloads that need to come through, like an intuition. My intuition needs to work. And so I will spend time, maybe 20 minutes, gathering information about the home, also the land it is built on, because, like, let's say the US, I have many cases where there's ancient lands of the indigenous people, and they were either forced, to resettle somewhere else, or they were slaughtered by, the people, the Europeans who went there. And they call it then cursed land, but it's really just the trauma imprints that are still on the land and can affect every single house living on top. So I also check for those things. In Europe, of course, we had two world wars, so there's a lot of land with trauma in terms of war. So I always look for those things. So both the land and the house itself can hold energies and frequencies from previous owners and previous centuries, even. And I will gather all of this information and recommend a course of action, which in space clearing means I work energetically because I'm also a healer. So I know how to take out negative energy and then the opposite, infuse it with positive energy so people can thrive in their homes again.
It was so interesting when you were saying it's not just the house, it's the history as to what has
Yeah.
gone on, in theory, underneath that house in that territory, a war. That is
Yes.
absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it's incredible when we pay attention to energy, what it tells us.
With energy clearing, do you get in contact with, let's say, the spirits? You know, when you were saying when you were living in Thailand, this man had taken his own life and he was
Mm.
making his presence known to you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you make contact with those people and basically
Yes.
sort of ask them to leave?
Yes, so I call it compassionate spirit release. I go in with compassion to understand their story. Yeah, you see, I speak five European languages, so I'm always very interested in communication and human beings who are alive, and the same is with the dead. It's just a new language to speak. And I speak to them, understand their story. Some of them have unfinished business or they're in pain. They share their stories with me, and I can assist them to go into the light. Many of them either are afraid of ending up in hell, if that was their belief system before, through religion or their own belief system. And oftentimes, all I need to say is, there is no such thing as hell. You will be welcomed with arms wide open. There's only peace where you go to.
It's quite interesting when somebody moves into a new home and they find out somebody died in a particular room, natural causes, nothing
Yeah.
untoward. A lot of people get a bit freaked out by that.
Mm.
What's that going to mean to us moving in? Are we all going to die if we sleep in that room? Can we talk about that? Because I think there's a big mystique about if there is a death in the house in that particular room. Everybody's
Hmm.
okay, we'll make that the junk room, or we'll make that something. It will not be the bedroom. Have you come across anything like that?
Yes, I do, because of course it happens often that people die naturally in their own homes, and I hope they do because it's much nicer than somewhere else. But yes, I think it's sad that we lost our ways with death. In Europe, we used to have the open caskets, before we just were exposed to death much more than nowadays. Nowadays, people are just so much more scared about talking about death and all of these things. But there's nothing to be really afraid of. Someone died, yes, they might even still linger around, but usually it's very easy to help them and assist them to step into the light. So I don't want to spread fear here in this podcast or make people afraid. It's very natural. Life and death, it's a cycle. And yeah, people dying in their homes is part of that. And to approach this with compassion. Yes, that's what I would love.
If we talk about in our own homes, what can we do to keep this sort of the energy positive and buoyant? I mean, we've talked about
Hmm.
spring. It's a great time to have a good old declutter, have a good old spring.
Yes.
But what can we do on a daily basis? We may have negative emotions, we've had a bad day at work or something's going on,
Mm.
but how can we stop this impacting our life and the other people
Hmm.
who live in the house with us?
So I would say daily is a bit too much, maybe, because people are also busy, and even house cleaning. We don't do it daily. I mean, some might, but usually it's more like a weekly thing. I would approach clearing energetic imprints or stress energy the same way, be it weekly or be it every 10 days. Some people do it every new moon or every full moon. And you can either use incense or smudging with herbs that already takes out a lot of the negativity. And my job is only really with the more hardcore energies, let's call them, right? If they're for a prolonged period of time, really strong energies were present, that's when I help. But the usual daily stuff, the arguments at work that we bring home and we are still upset and release that, that's all usual life stuff. And you can perfectly clear that on your own, weekly or bi-weekly or once a month.
If we could make one change in our lives to keep this positive energy at home, what would suggest you do? I mean, I'm at the moment, I've been reading a lot about the benefit of plants absorbing the sort of the electricity from our TVs, from our computers. And I've been researching these plants which are good for the bathroom, which are good for the bedroom. That is something incredibly simple that we can do relatively cheaply, and they'll look fantastic. And a lot of these
True.
plants are just incredibly low maintenance. So, you
Mm.
don't have to be green fingers. So, for me personally, on my to-do list is getting a lot more plants and get more in all the different rooms.
Yes, they absorb negative energies. Even when you walk outside in nature, you can also get rid of a lot of negative energy. And at home as well. If you have plants at home, they will help really get rid of the negative energy. They are incredibly powerful. Other people are into crystal stones, and each crystal stone has different properties. And usually, I always tell clients be intuitive when you go pick the crystals. Some like the clear quartz or the amethyst, and they place those at home. And again, crystals not just absorb negative energies, but also they can transmit positive energies. Again, not everyone is into crystals, so that's perfectly fine. But yes, plants definitely help. And then, yeah, just with intention, sometimes smudge the place with incense or herbs. That will help. Some people put also salt in the corners.
Oh, tell me about that one. I haven't heard about the salt.
Yes, salt also absorbs negative energy.
So it's as simple as putting salt, just our normal table salt, or do you use sea salt?
Sea salt is even better. Also, when you have a shower, you can take sea salt and rub your body with it because it cleanses your entire aura.
Oh my goodness, wow, I didn't know that either. So
Hmm.
sea salt, which we can get from the supermarket relatively
Yes.
cheaply, in little bowls scattered around the rooms. It's okay in the
Mm.
bedroom, kitchen.
Everywhere. Yes.
Oh, I love that. And that's an
Mm.
excuse to have some little tiny dishes scattered. That's definitely going to be a conversation starter, isn't it? People may ignore the plants, but they won't ignore the little dishes of salt. I
Yes.
love that.
Of course, decluttering that you mentioned already also really helps the energy of a home to get rid of clutter. So that in itself improves the energy a lot. And also, I would say if you have a lot of inherited furniture, like really old vintage things, also with intention, go there and smudge around those furniture or objects. Because, of course, multiple people might have owned them and left behind their own energies in there. So take care of old objects. Yes, I think those are the easiest things that you can do at home.
I love this, Lais. Even just talking and thinking about these practical, very simple things we can do just makes you feel lighter.
Our ancestors in Europe, they had many rituals to purify their homes. And
Yeah.
they also work with symbolism. They had the horseshoe that they hung up on the door to bring good luck.
I really am interested in Feng Shui, and
Hmm.
a lot of people sort of take this incredibly serious. For example, if you're starting a business, you will get an expert in. I mean, it's not so much in the Western world, but in you know, other cultures, it's
Mm,
number one before you make any investment. Is this house in harmony? What about the light? There is
mm,
so much to these things
absolutely.
can make a huge difference to our life.
Yes. And the Eastern traditions in China, in Thailand, in India, they all know how to purify their temples, their homes, how to build them so they have the best possible energy. And in the Western world, we are catching up to that because there's more and more Feng Shui practitioners in the West as well, and space clearing experts too. So we are learning more and more. I do believe we had those wisdoms before, but maybe through because we were pagans before, before Christianity took over, we had all our rituals and we were deeply in tune with energies. And then the witches were burnt in Europe, all their wisdom and their herbalism, things that they knew how to heal with herbs and how to purify homes with their rituals. All of that wisdom just was lost in Europe.
I think it's very interesting you talking about sort of herbs because now all the sort of the pharmaceutical drugs we are using now all stem
Mm,
back to the original plants, flowers, root, bark. And they, you know, I think a lot of people are still, okay, instead of taking a pill, let me have a look, you know, do I need honey? What should I do? You know, should I have more lemon?
mm,
What does the body need? So I think it's very interesting. This
yes,
whole there is so much we can do for our bodies and our lives in respect
absolutely.
of keeping our positive energy up. Because if we are looking after ourselves and we've got positivity around us, when we
Mm,
get these trials and tribulations on a daily basis, we're in a better
mm.
space to cope with them. So, Lais, before we finish, anything else you want to cover? I've been making a list as we've been talking here.
No, I think we pretty much covered most of it, to be honest. I think the way I would describe space clearing is like everything else that you do is like a multi-purpose cleaner that works very efficiently in the home, works perfectly well. And then when I do space clearing, it's really more the professional. Let's say if you have a red wine stain, you will not take the all-purpose cleaner. You will have something specifically for that. And that's how I see my role. I have all the more important tools, that can address really the big things happening in a home. People can use, the salt, as I said, and the smudging and all of this. It's like the perfect all-purpose cleaner for the home. And then I'm only needed for the really big stains, let's call it, the things that the regular things can't take care of. That's how I see my role in this.
I think this is such an interesting conversation. I absolutely love it. And you've given us some great takeaways. I mean, I'm going to go and look at my little stash of little dishes, go to the supermarket and get some sick because I just love that idea. The plants absorbing all this negative energy from technology
Mm.
and the salt
Hmm.
as well. I just love that. And I shall report back because,
Please do.
yeah, I just love it. And it's so simple to do. Lais, thank you so much for taking us into your world as a modern day Ghostbuster.
Thank you for the invite. It was such a pleasure to talk to you here.
Oh, what a brilliant conversation. So, thank you so much for listening to our conversation. And I really hope you took some points from that. I think Lais gave us some really good, simple things that we can do to raise our positivity in the home. So, thank you for listening to our conversation. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on whatever platform you're using. It is completely free. And please share this podcast with the people in your life who may enjoy it. And if you have a story to tell, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's tell your story.